Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Hello, hello. Test 1, test 2. Testing 1 2.
we ready, Mr. Holt? Okay. So good evening. Today is September the 14th. We're going to open with our Pledge of Allegiance, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. We're just going to maintain a moment of silence in recognition of the anniversary of September 11th. It's been 19 years since that event took place, and we just felt like it's appropriate to just take a moment of silence for that. So if you will stand, Mr. Wilson will lead us in a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll just join with us now in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now we'll call our September 14th meeting to order, and we will begin with you, Mr. Sale.
You have the agenda in front of you. Since that point, there have been 2 resignations that have come to our office, so we'll be adding those. And we also have 1 hire to put on there. I believe that I've shared that information with you. But those are the only changes to the agenda, unless you have something that you would like to put on there.
Does any other member have anything they'd like to put on there? And we'll add the resignations and the hire under action items.
Yes.
Perfect. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with those additions?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. And that was unanimous.
All right. We have Allison Cochran with us again, and she's going to be a regular fixture, mostly because I just like having her around.
Comforting.
And she doesn't have anything else to do.
Mm-mm.
So Allison, would you come and give us an update on what's happening as far as COVID in Swain County?
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have in front of you the handout. I believe everybody has one. Okay. Of course, you have the United States. I'm not going to go through that. North Carolina, total tests, a little over 2.6 million, 185,781 positive tests, 3,060 deaths, 895 hospitalized. The positivity rate for North Carolina is 7.1%. Case fatality is 1.6%. So that's roughly around the same that I've been reporting for the past few weeks in North Carolina. In Swain County, 4,043 total tests, 64 pending tests currently, 3,841 negative tests. There's 138 positive cases since March. Active cases currently are 4. Again, we've had 3 deaths. Our positivity rate is 3.4, case fatality is 2.2. Again, those numbers are staying roughly the same over the past couple of weeks. On the back page, it's just a breakdown of the one graph of the cases by age. From 0 to 17 for school-aged children, where you're concerned, there have been 17. And that's where it's been for the past few weeks. Down below is just some demographics for Western North Carolina, Macon, Graham, Clay, Cherokee, and Jackson. Out beside those are the dates that we were able to pull the information. So looking at that, and I compared it last week to the Board of Commissioners, case fatality overall positive rate is staying about the same for across Western North Carolina. Graham County is reporting on their Facebook post that they possibly have 1 death in Graham County. They're working to confirm that with the physician, but at this time it's not confirmed. It's just a possible.
Any questions?
Roughly about 1/4 of our population has been tested. Again, we're teetering around 1% for positive rate for Swain County.
we're teetering on what, so then?
1%.
1%. So that's even lower than what it has been.
It's been-
1% active right now.
Yes. Well, the
Okay.
positive rate since March to now, that 138 versus the 14,000 residents we have. So we're very
Okay.
low.
Gotcha.
We're very
gotcha.
low, if you're looking at it that way.
That way. And then the 3.4%.
3.4% is those that have been tested and come back
Not the overall
positive.
population. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else have any
How long
questions?
does it take to get results back now?
It depends on which test that you do. The diagnostic test is around 3 days. That's been the normal test. Urgent care just got their rapid test last week, and they have started using it, and it's 15 minutes.
Wow.
Most times with that, though, you only test those that are symptomatic or have been identified as a close contact. But it is up to them who they test. So right now, it's about 15 minutes for the rapid test, and it's about 97% accurate. So it's very good.
Great.
Do they test those, do they also do the diagnostic as well? And
If it comes back negative, they do.
Perfect, so that makes good sense. So if you're sitting there and you have a rapid test and it comes back negative, then we're going to drop back and do the diagnostic test to hopefully guarantee 2 negatives.
Yes.
Okay.
And with that rapid test, I've been told it does, what I understand, it does the COVID, flu, strep, and 2 others. But I've lost them in my brain, what they were.
Wow, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And who did you say?
Urgent care has that.
Urgent care.
Mhm.
Okay. Perfect.
We were notified several months ago about this test coming out, and we notified everybody and said, get this ordered now. And they did it that day. And then come to find out, the government tried to seize it. But they had already ordered it and signed a contract. So they're one of the few in the area that have this test.
Wow,
So,
way to go.
yeah, worked out well.
Perfect. Well, that's very helpful information to have.
So if someone's negative and they're going to do the diagnostic, do they have to maintain the quarantine between the two if there's been that?
It depends if they're symptomatic, asymptomatic, if they're a close contact or not. So it depends on every person, basically. If you elect to have a test done and you're not symptomatic and you're not a close contact, technically you don't have to quarantine. We ask that you do, but just in case, but it's not required.
Okay. So even the ones that do take the rapid because of the close contacts or symptoms, they're still,
If it's positive, they have to quarantine for the
but
10
negative-
days.
Negative, do they have to?
If the rapid.
If the rapid is negative, if they are symptomatic or a close contact, then yes, they would.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have to think that through my brain. It changes so
Well,
rapidly.
there's so many scenarios of if this happens and that happens, yeah. Great. Well, again, I know, we're just all dealing with very difficult times, but it's encouraging to me that these percentages of positives are staying as low as they are. And that's just, thank you to our community and to everyone who is doing the right thing and trying to be careful.
Yeah, wearing the mask and
Wearing the
social
mask.
distancing, the 6 feet, I think is very key.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll put a plug in there for wear your mask the right way. Any other questions or comments?
Oh, I told her today, I saw her waiting on her son while I was waiting on my granddaughter. I told her then, I said, she's been very key to our process, and we appreciate it. We really, you don't know how much we appreciate it. I hope the community does. You've kept us informed, and it's helped a lot. Thank you.
It helps. I have a great staff, so when you see them,
Well,
they're very appreciative.
Well, tell them we said thank you as
I
well.
will.
Please tell them we said thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anything else from me this evening? Cut out?
you're not gonna stay?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to tonight.
Thank you, Allison.
Thanks.
We notified the community today that we had 2 employees over the weekend who had tested positive. We also used or asked the health department to help us with the contact tracing, and found out that none of our other staff had close contact with them. There was a concern about when symptoms were found, and those symptoms were actually became apparent after the worker left work on Friday. So with all of those pieces in place, we're able to continue business like we have been. We've taken abundant precautions, and there are some other pieces that we put into place because these folks were working in our cafeteria. But I think that right now we're in a good place with all of that, using some of these rapid testings and also the fact that they didn't have close contact and are not symptomatic. But we'll keep an eye on that as well. Okay?
I was just going to comment, Mark. I've made this statement a couple times in the last couple of days. Whenever something comes up, then I always learn something new, as you know, because there's no way that I know everything that's going on, but I learned something new. And I was quite impressed with the precautions and the protocols that were already put in place within our cafeteria system, in learning that our cafeteria staff have been assigned together in groups of 2. And so those are the only, each other, they're the only persons that they really come into contact with. And even during the course of their day, all the mandates are still in place to social distance, wear masks, wash your hands, that sort of thing. But I was just really impressed with that, to know that then when a situation comes up, hopefully it's kind of self-contained between those 2 staff members. So kudos to whoever put that plan in place. Thank you.
That's Jennifer Brown.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And Jennifer and her staff and Tommy worked overtime this weekend to make sure that all of this was taken care of. And for them to be able to pull off some of the things that they did this morning and get some other pieces in place, it's a hero's effort. Once again, after they fed everybody all summer. So, hats off to that crew, and we really appreciate them and Jennifer. Unless you have any other questions about any of that, we'd like for, how was I going to say this? I was practicing this on the way to get supper. The man, the myth, and the legend, Graham Lewis, with Schneider Electric.
Thank you all for having me tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's really nice to be back out here after the pandemic. And I was telling Mr. Sale I was going through withdrawal because I'd been to so many meetings. But a couple of weeks ago, we had our formal construction kickoff meeting with Mr. Sale and Randy and Toby to go over a wide variety of things before we kicked off construction in schools last week. The most important part of the meeting really was the safety and security protocols, and I think that's where we spent a majority of our time as well, both on the background checks, the scheduling, badging, to make sure that everyone's where they need to be while on site, but also to meet all of your COVID-19 procedures. So I spent a lot of time in the meeting doing that. As far as the actual construction goes, we started the LED installations last week, which is really exciting. We're starting at the high school. I think we're already about a quarter of the way done. I know we were working on the library today, and so I'm going to try and swing by there afterwards, possibly, to be able to take a look, because I haven't seen them myself yet. We expect all of the lighting to be done by the end of October. Keep in mind that the guaranteed savings period doesn't start until the beginning of March next year. Water fixture recommissioning and upgrades start tonight as well. And then building envelope upgrades will start next week. Both of those we expect to be done by the end of this month, so at the end of September. I think between all 3 of those areas, because your guaranteed savings portion doesn't start until March, you have all of the savings that's going to be unaccounted for in terms of your payments. And so luckily you guys should see a positive cash flow right up front in your budget this year of over $23,000 just from those measures. All the mechanical work, the chillers and boilers of the elementary schools, we expect to start mid to late October and then finish up in February, well in advance of your guaranteed savings. So happy to answer any questions, but we're really excited just to have this project out underway now that everything is open back up.
Questions?
The LED upgrade, does that include the gyms?
It does, yep.
Should.
Yep, absolutely.
Every building, except for pre-K.
Pre-K, that was the only one left out. But yeah, the gyms, absolutely, and I actually got dinner with our site superintendent who's been out here 100% of the time that we're doing work And he made sure to get before pictures of the gyms so that when the LEDs are in there, we'll have some really neat before and after pictures.
Oh, great. Good.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Anything else?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
We're
thank you all
excited to
again
have
for your
you.
support.
Yay.
Yes, definitely. It's great
Welcome
being back out here.
If you scoot over there, you can see what they've done.
Yes, definitely.
You'll see the difference.
Really?
Yeah, well, you'll see
Good
it. Yeah.
All right, thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Sonia Blankenship walked in Thursday, Friday, last week, and you see these folks are coming in. They start at 4 in the afternoon, and they quit about 2 in the morning. And she walked in the next morning and flipped on the lights in her office, and thought that something had happened to her eyes because she could see. So it really does make a difference.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you, Graham.
Great, thank you.
Construction update as far as the high school is concerned, we're moving closer and closer to a move-in time. The only thing that is going to slow that down at all is that site work that has to be completed out front for parking and for the turnaround. And I've shared with you a document tonight that, and also today, that should help you see what that's going to look like. It's going to be quite impressive. But Toby, there are 2 pieces of that we're going to get the keys for fairly quickly. I believe one is the administration area and the other is the counseling suite, correct? And Stephanie, the furniture for those 2 parts and the cafeteria are scheduled to be there this week, correct? Yes. So as soon as they get the final inspections on those pieces, we can begin to access them from the inside, especially the counseling suite. Now, we're already using the cafeteria with social distancing in place for students to eat. The kitchen should be complete, and if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he said October 1st, they should be working in there.
Wow. That's great.
So that will mean we won't have to be delivering meals to there, which is our team has handled with flawlessly. But it'll be nice to be back in that building.
Yeah.
The only piece that won't be complete quite as quickly are the STEM classrooms, and the reason for that is they kind of put them on the back burner just a little bit to get the other pieces done, because what we call the millwork, which are the lab tables and some of the things like that, they got held up because of COVID. And so they decided to make that last since we couldn't get the equipment in. And those should be ready, I'm thinking mid-October, I'm hoping. We really want to get our folks out of the administrative area as quickly as we can so that this company can then get into that area and start renovating that and get us 3 or 4 classrooms. It's one of the 2. It's either 3 or 4 more classrooms. By the time all of this is done, we will have gained 4 or 5 classrooms in the building, plus the counseling suite, plus a huge administrative upgrade. So this has been a good project. And the kitchen. Plus the outside's going to look totally different, And I believe that our safety feature, which was the primary reason that we did this, the safety features at the high school are going to be upgraded so much that it's just worth the cost for all of that. Y'all have any questions about the construction?
We got money for a gate.
Where do you want to put it?
Well, the main road going in,
Yeah.
we're talking about at some point, hopefully, being able to gate that with some system. Security.
We're getting an estimate on that.
Okay.
Knowing, or at least hoping that the state will once again present a safety grant.
Okay.
And
Good.
that, and cameras on the outside are a top priority. Brandon and Dave and I walked outside last week with the camera places and we talked about that.
Good.
I was just getting ready to say, Mr. Burrell, if you don't mind to come up to the microphone and answer that.
Thanks, Joe.
We can hear you, but
Thank you.
people that are listening or watching can't. So the question was regarding potentially a gate?
Correct.
Front entrance?
We have a quote coming on that gate from the folks who put the swipe cards on our doors. So the system is all the same, and we should be getting that within the next couple of weeks. My hope is that the state will once again present the safety grant money that they've given the last 2 years. If that's the case, cameras for the outside of that school and that gate will be our top priority. in trying to get secured for that. Since all of those are one-time costs, essentially, they would qualify for that grant. And we're hopeful. But yes, if we get that, we feel very confident that the high school can go from being one of our least secure campuses to one of our most secure.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that gate for where, on that design that came to us today, there is a gate that's mentioned in the parent turn area. I mean, I know you'd probably have to have a magnifying glass to read it. Not just you, Jerry, but everybody. I didn't mean it that way. But now that I've said it, it was fun.
Now that it's out there.
I'm sorry. I don't know that we need a gate right there where it's mentioning that. That's something for us to talk about. I think that we could probably paint something on the ground as a stop line. That's the purpose of that, is to get parents to stop before they get actually into the turnaround area. But we can look at that and see.
Now, that didn't show on down below it. I'm assuming that comes in from that, what was the bus
Yes.
exit?
Yes,
They've got that for that and the other separate.
yes.
That'd be good.
Yeah, and they're going to take out the curbing that's on, if you're coming in that road, there's some curbing on the right side. They're going to take that out and expand the shoulder out and put a 1-foot grass water ditch to catch the runoff there. And there are also some other drainage pieces that they're going to put in to help control that.
And we still got an interest through our representatives and Robbie.
Yes.
Trying to get us money for that
Yes.
exit, which I think will eventually come. That'd be
I think eventually it'll get there.
Yeah.
I don't know that it'll be within the next 6 or 8 months,
All right.
but we'll keep after that.
Would that grant just cover, as far as safety issues, would it cover lighting too?
It would, but the problem with the grant the last year and this year, if we have it again, is that it's capped per ADM and it's per student. And so last year we got very little in comparison to the year before. The year before it was brand new and wasn't capped. And so we asked for a lot and got a lot. This past year we didn't ask for as much, but we got everything we asked for, but it was capped. And our cap is somewhere around, Stephanie, do you remember, 10,000? Something in that neighborhood. It's a little low for what we really need it for. So we have to be pretty frugal on what we get in that. But we can certainly look at that in terms of what that would cost.
I might suggest one avenue on that you could help if you need more money is to contact Nantahala and the, what's it called in Nashville, the Mission Foundations. They are giving grants like that out if it's helping like schools and safety initiatives and stuff. They would be a good people. One of them's the Nantahala one's out of the Highlands, but it's all Mission, from Mission Hospital. And what's the one in Nashville? Dogwood Foundation. And they've got a lot of money.
I think we're in the cycle right now. I wish that Allison were still here because she's on that board. I think we're still in the cycle for, I think, Nantahala.
Okay.
And so we need to look into that. But if we are, we've only got a few days.
Okay.
Okay? We can look at that and see.
Okay.
If you'll hang out right there for just a second, because we want to talk about naming the multipurpose building.
Okay.
In just a second. The other piece, though, that I want to bring to your attention publicly has to do with our air conditioning, HVAC, environmental controls in the brick building where the 7th and 8th grade are. We're at a point where we're going to have to move forward with replacing pieces there. And we've been putting more money and more money and more money into that. Right now, 2 classrooms are running off of temporary air conditioners that we're renting. Those are costing $500 a month. We can, and I doubt that we'll need them after the end of October. But I have an engineer coming in. I don't remember with who at this moment. I can look it up. I've got it right here. But they should be here at the end of this week or the beginning of next week to begin the design process of replacing those units outside. And the thing about that is we can't just replace the outside pieces because there is a new Freon expectation. So we will also have to replace the exchangers inside. And that's going to be a fairly major job. Some of those exchangers are as big as my office. Not that my office is small, I don't mean it that way, but they're fairly large. We're looking right now as a rough, very, very rough estimate at $125,000 to change that whole building. But when we started the performance contract process, the goal was to take care of those big pieces that if they were to break, we would be in really tough shape. And then by having that taken care of, we can focus some of our capital expenditure, particularly from the quarter cent money, and start taking care of those problems, one piece at a time. I see this as the first piece. Okay, so as soon as we get that, I'll bring those quotes to you, and then it'll be time for us to meet with the commissioners and talk to them about how we're going to make this happen. I believe that they're willing to work with us, and I shared this with them last week so that nobody would be caught off guard. Our quarter cent money, according to the North Carolina Department of Revenue, and if I'm incorrect on this, Stephanie, you need to draw me back pretty quick, okay? But from what I have seen online, it pulled in over $400,000 last year. The total that I saw was $414,000. Now, part of that's going to be used to help pay for the loan for the construction of the high school for a little while, but there should be enough left out of that to do this project and some other things as well as we're moving forward, okay? We promised to the community also that we would keep track of that and keep an eye on it, and I believe that we are. All right? Any questions about that? Multipurpose building is up and running. They're using it all the time. We've got folks that are waiting for signs to be put up. We promised the tribal council that we would put a sign there with their seal inside because they gave such a generous donation to help purchase the equipment. Also, the McCrackens gave a fairly generous donation as we were getting started. However, there is a process that we have to go through according to policy number 9300. Toby, what have we done with that process so far?
Well, so far we have a Google form that's a sheet that you can turn in with a suggestion for a name to go on it that lists the board policy on it so that whatever is submitted will follow board policy. We're going to take those. Mark and I'll sit down and compose a list for you guys and bring it back to you probably next month for you to go through and make some decisions on what we can call this building. I have Gary Ayers standing by ready to put some signage on it just as soon as we can. Our hope was to do it before the kickoff of football season this year, but that was back when football was supposed to have already been kicked off. So we're still in good shape on making the start of football season at this point. But we do need to get something up there when we can, as soon as we can, especially when we've got people ready, willing, and able to volunteer to help offset some of those costs and to help us get that done, and I think we can. This week we also extended an invitation. We'd like to extend one to y'all too if you haven't done it, but we extended an invitation to the tribal council to come down and come through the building, either when there's students there or not students there, ever how they wanted to do it, we'd meet them and take them through the building. We'd love to do the same with you if you'd like that kind of tour. If you want to, just call my office or email me and we'll set it up for you and take a walk through it. It's very impressive. The kids are getting a lot out of it despite the restrictions right now. With the increase in the number inside, that will help because that'll allow them to get more people inside than they've been having to do outside. But Adam is already hard at work using it. I posted a video this week of kids working out in there on our Facebook page. So lots of good stuff.
Yes.
They all have their masks on.
Yep.
Would it be appropriate when the signage is, and when the name has been chosen and the signage has been put up, would it be appropriate to have a ribbon cutting?
I think it would.
And at that point, invite the McCrackens and tribal
Yes.
council as well?
I think it would be very appropriate.
I think that would be wonderful to do something like that.
And I think that with the lessening of the restrictions with phase 2.5, that we probably could accommodate that now.
Right.
I was concerned before with what kind of an opening you could have with just 20 people outside and 10 inside. But I think that we can achieve
We can
that.
accommodate that, yeah. Okay.
Any questions for Toby or anyone about
Thank you.
about the process?
Sound good.
We'll bring those names to you.
Great.
And we'll probably bring them with a recommendation, but obviously the final decision belongs to you, okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Burrow.
Do you have a copy of the capital outlay budget? I think that we put that in your pack, yes? If you will track down through there at the high school, you'll notice it says Fine Arts Center stage rigging repair. We are not using the Fine Arts Center right now because we can't assemble, or at least we're not using the stage piece. And so we've come up to an issue at the high school where the public address system is not functioning. There were even days whenever they didn't have a bell system. And we contacted, I believe it's Haynes, they're the ones who have been controlling that for us out of Asheville. And they don't even make parts for the system that we have anymore. And the CPU in that system, as ancient as it is, it had a CPU, is not working. You know, so we could have taken a risk and tried to find a used replacement piece, or we could replace it. We spoke with a couple of companies, with Haynes and also with NCI, who takes care of our locks. And we have come back with a bid from NCI for the high school at $4,625. That's 75% cheaper than the other company.
Wow. And that's to put a whole new system in?
What it will do is will give us a bell system and the ability to have public address. That really is all that we need now, Melly. When I went to school there, when Kim went to school there, you could call in and out through the rooms. We now have phones in the room for that. We don't need that, okay? All we need is a way to have emergency sounds happening and a way to have bell systems. And what we want is something we can control ourselves. With the current system, we had to call somebody out of Asheville. It was at least $250 every time they made a trip, and only one person could make the adjustments. We can do that ourselves with this one. We can also add to it because it's going to be tied into our network. So if we want to add more horns or more speakers, we can do that through our network now. It will all be self-controlled. The other piece that we are able to do also, and we've been needing to do, is to replace the PA system at the middle school because it's just about as old. They gave us a price on that of $41.50. So we can replace the PA system in both places for half of what the other bid was just for the high school. In order to do that, we need to make an adjustment to our capital outlay budget. So I'm going to suggest to you tonight in just a little while that we take about $10,000 out of that fine arts stage rigging for now, and that we place that into the PA upgrades for the two schools. Okay? Did I say that correctly? All right. And we're still ahead of the game, which is good. Any thoughts or questions about that? Last time we had a board meeting, we had a conversation about supplements for coaches, or not just for coaches, for anybody who's working in extracurriculars. I've shared with you the process that we've gone through, and we have begun the process of putting that into action now. I feel like that we had good consensus on that, and that process will be 25% available whenever they sign. And then the next 75% they can have choices in. One would be if they want to participate in preseason work. That would be some of the things that they're doing right now. Then they can spread that over the next, is it 9 or 10 months? 9 months? Yeah. And if they don't want to be involved in the preseason workouts, that's their choice too. But if they do that, they'll get 25% when the season starts and 50% when the season's over. Okay? Either way is fine. And we have, Tommy, I believe, has shared that with every coach, correct? And we're getting commitments on them. I believe that the checks went out for the initial payment last Friday. Yeah. So we are ahead of the game from where we were on that. And if anyone is not a current employee of the Swain County school system, they have to choose, well, they don't even get a choice. They have to do that second route. That has to do with being able to move money back and forth if we need to, if somebody were to quit. Any questions? Okay. Okay, all right, good. Last thing that I want to share with you tonight as far as discussion is concerned, we're running right around 600, I believe 650 in our, is that correct, Brandon? 650 in our Swain virtual program? I'm pretty sure that's really close. It's 35% of our total enrollment. And our total enrollment right now is standing somewhere around 1,840. I had it on this chart right here. It was 1,834. And we had 649 students in Swain virtual. But what we were finding is that if we had many more changing out of Plan B, which is face-to-face, into Swain virtual, it's really going to stretch our sources even more on both sides. And so what we've done is developed an application process to go from face-to-face to Swain virtual. And it's not to necessarily say that you cannot, but it's to make sure that we have an opportunity to have solid conversation with parents and students. Because some students, particularly at the high school, got to the point where they didn't like the fact that they couldn't have all the freedoms that they've associated with high school because of the restrictions that we have to have for social distancing, and so they were switching out. Now, if somebody has a doctor's note or has a true fear, then that'll be looked at one way. But we had to have a way to kind of have a conversation and put some other pieces in place. And so the schools have started using that already. We took the application process that was for the high school and gave it to the middle and the elementaries, and they adapted it to their schools. And they're using that as a conversation point now. So again, I want to say it's not that you can't switch from B to C, but at this point, there's more conversation. It's not just a you call and we switch kind of thing, okay? And I think that's the wise thing for us to do so that we don't stretch any farther. I shared that with you last week, I believe, didn't I?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Any questions about that? Those are all of the action items, all of the discussion points that I have, unless you all want to put some more out. We good?
Everybody good?
Okay.
Good.
Then that moves us into the action section. And with that, I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the minutes of the August 3rd, 2020 open session meeting, the August 3rd, 2020 closed session meeting, and the August 31st, 2020 special called meeting. You should have all of those minutes in your hand, and I recommend that you adopt them.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as stated?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, both sets as stated.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions, concerns? All in favor, raise your hand, please. That was unanimous.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the capital outlay adjustment, which would be $10,000 from the rigging line item and placed into another line item for replacement of the PA system at the high school and the middle school.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussions? All in favor, raise your hand. That was unanimous.
Now, you have already approved this digitally. We had the opportunity again to request a winter weather waiver.
Winter weather waiver.
Wonderful, wonderful world of winter, right? And that allows for us to start a little bit differently. I don't think the delay is as big as it has been in the past because of the way the calendar falls. However, we're pretty much the same on where the school year would end, and it's not for the next school year, but it's for the 2021 school year, okay? It's a little bit farther out there. And so I am recommending that you approve that I send in the winter waiver request in open session, like you have already approved digitally, okay?
Do I have a motion to approve the winter weather waiver?
I'll make that motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, raise your hand. That was unanimous.
Bob Thomas told me when he sent his resignation in for driving the bus that I think he said it was Clifford Frizzell. I think it was Clifford Frizzell. came to him and said, listen, I've got a bus I need you to drive for about a week.
About a week. That would have been,
And Bob said that was 40 years ago.
yeah,
And he's been driving ever since.
wow.
But Bob has decided that it's time to drive no more. And so I recommend we accept the resignation of Bob Thomas effective August 12th, 2020.
Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Thomas?
I'll make that motion with regrets and thanks to Mr. Thomas for
I'll second
his
that.
long service.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, raise your hand. That was unanimous.
So I guess 70 years later, that Bob is officially out of the school system. Tavish Brown has been offered a job that she couldn't pass up, and I personally hate to see her go because she's a good friend of mine. But I recommend that we accept the resignation of Tavish Brown effective September 25th of 2020.
Do I have a
Make that
motion?
motion
And a second?
with regret.
With regret.
Second.
Any further questions or discussions? All in favor? Raise your hand, please. That was unanimous.
We were able to restart the Parents as Teacher organization here in the school system last year, and we had just one of the best teachers that you'll ever find in Penny Cody. She's just amazing. But Penny had the opportunity to move into an elementary position, and she is now teaching first grade, I believe, at West Elementary. Am I correct? Pardon me? First grade. Okay. And that opened that position, and so we've gone through the hiring process, and we would like to recommend to you, or I would like to recommend to you tonight, that we hire Caitlin Quinnett as our Parent as Teacher Coordinator beginning Monday, September 21st of 2020. I believe that that's going to be a good addition for us.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any further questions or discussions? All in favor, raise your hand, please. That was unanimous.
I don't know that we have any other action items. Am I correct, Joanne? Okay. And so the next thing that's on our agenda is a presentation by Lisa Bridges. She's not Lisa Bridges, she's Button Bridges. And Button has some things that she wants to share with you.
Well, on the agenda, it's actually incorrect, but I'm actually speaking about parents, not children, which is a little unusual.
Oh, that's true.
So I have here a copy of the PowerPoint put together. We decided it wasn't really effort for me to try to sit here and fight with it. Most of you guys, I'm going to get to this microphone. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Most of you guys know me, but some of you that don't, can you hear me? Usually I don't have a problem being heard, so not an issue. Anyway, I felt like when things started this year, my way of handling things is I try to figure them out. And this is kind of unprecedented, what's going on here in our school system. So the title of my presentation, I'm going to have to pop this down there we go. Glasses and all. Parental stress during the pandemic, because I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about kids, which is super important, and that's who we serve, but we've got some parents out there who are struggling as well, and who are, like myself, this is all new, and all the students and the teachers and the staff of the school system, we are all adjusting, and it's tough. And I felt like that we did not need to overlook the stress that's going on in the families and with the parents, that we needed to take that into account as we are developing plans, and not to fail to involve families and parents in the process. Because it's easy to plow forward and forget that there's things on the side, and that this is having an effect. So my presentation tonight will be very positive and will offer concerns but also suggestions. And I just want you guys to know how appreciative I am of this opportunity, that when I called the school board or the administrative offices and said, I want to talk to the school board, I immediately got a call back from Mr. Sutton, Dr. Sutton, excuse me. And he and I have a history at the middle school. And I was just, so thankful that he was willing to trust me. And I'm sure Mr. Sale has a history with me too. And we all have. And Mr. McKinney was my high school U.S. history teacher, and he and I had many conversations, and I was inspired to be a history teacher until I got to Western and went into a teaching class and decided maybe that's not for me. I think what happened was I did an actual placement in a school and realized kids don't always do what you tell them to do. So then I realized I wasn't necessarily going to be a teacher, although I do enjoy teaching quite a bit. So thank you guys for everything you've done to educate our kids during this unprecedented time. And I just want to say that in March, when this happened, I was up on Alarka in my home, and when I watched the news, I did home visits on March 16th. The evening of March 16th, we were watching the news, and then everything for me shut down on March 17th. Because I'm a social worker, and I'm a mental health clinician, and I do therapy and work with families who are at risk in our communities, and I'm out in the community. I am not in my office most days. And suddenly I got a phone call and an email that said, do not go to the office, do not go to homes, we are grounded. And my life shifted. But I want to say this, after that, when y'all adjusted and those school buses got back on the road, I looked forward every day at around 11 o'clock. That little yellow school bus came up the road, and that reminded me that we're all still connected. And I was reminded that there was still a school system, we were all still together in this, and I was so thankful, and I listened for that school bus every day around 11 o'clock, no matter what I was doing, because it made me feel connected in some small way. And I thank you for the fact that the meals went out, and that was one thing that I could count on Monday through Friday. And I actually couldn't get my kids convinced to go up there and take any food, but I went up one day and thanked them. And I thank them, and I appreciate everything that you guys did to keep us all together. And I know I'm going to keep this as short as I can, but I do tend to be a little long-winded, and I'll try not to talk too much. So there was an abrupt transition in the spring. I was ever so pleased with how the school system, I watched your planning when you were trying to keep kids in school, and I saw how hard you worked because you wanted to keep kids in school, and how y'all did a lot of work to be told to shut things down. And I recognized that all the work that went into that. And then here we were online. And I have a child at the middle school, and that's like the next page. I have a husband who works at the middle school, and my child's involved in Exceptional Children's Program, and she was not terribly motivated to do her work online. I mean, the transition happened so suddenly. It was like, wow, we don't have to go to school anymore. That's great. But I was so thankful that the middle school really stepped up. Mr. Kerr, the EC department there, Mr. Payne. Mr. Payne was an amazing resource to me in the spring, and I fought hard to keep him this year. Miss Schuler's great too. Just saying. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say names, but anyway, it was an abrupt transition, and I just want to give a voice to the parents, and that's why I'm here tonight to say, and families, and I want you guys to know that that there's another layer of what's going on here. It's not just getting kids to school and getting them educated, which is super important. And yes, my kid wanted to quit too after the first week when she realized she couldn't stand in the hallways and talk. She was like, well, why am I even going? But it's so important. I think it's still very important that you offered 2 plans, not just one, and that families weren't, all shoved into one situation. So the way I look at things is always, I don't just talk, I try to think about what does the research say to us about this situation. And fortunately, there's been some research that has been done recently related to families, parents, children, and the new situation that we're in here. And for obvious reasons, some of the first research came out of China and Italy because they were hit first and ahead of us. So thankfully, there was some folks, some researchers in those countries who did some research and found that, in fact, families were obviously stressed by this new situation, and particularly by the fact that school transitioned from being something that kids went to something that was done in the home. Quite suddenly, you had to adjust to the fact that for those of us who do not aspire to be homeschoolers, that was never my goal, to be a homeschooler. Suddenly we got to be a homeschooler. And some of us were better at it than others, that's for sure. And so the way that parents processed this, according to the research, was that, and the way that they dealt with this online stuff, the school stuff switching, was that they adjusted based on basically what the research showed was that depending on how they managed the quarantine was sort of how they managed being their child's resource at home for education, and that if they had higher stress over the quarantine, they tended to have higher stress over the at-home learning, which makes sense. And I will admit that I was one of those parents who had a good bit of stress about the fact that my kid didn't go to school because I value school very much. And I was very concerned about how she was going to adjust into that situation. And so later on, more research was done, and we found, the APA gets involved, the American Psychological Association. They do their things, and we found that parents really did, about 50% of parents actually admitted that this online schooling was very stressful to them, and they were already stressed by the pandemic, by the quarantine, by the fact that things had changed, but the online learning added a whole other layer of stress in their lives. So that being said, protective factors in all this for families were families who had, if you have a good family system and you have marriages that are going okay and you have, pretty good relationship with your kids and you've got a good family support, you're probably going to adjust all right. But what we found with the research was that actually, if you have some stressors in your life, like mental health problems already, or you're super poor, or you lose your job, or if you're the parent of a middle school or high school student, your level of stress is significantly high. It's higher than folks who are otherwise identify. So as a parent of a middle schooler, I can tell you that I'm pretty stressed. And she's an 8th grader. So I'm very stressed because my kid's going to transition to high school next year after this. And I'm thinking, boy, I hope I'm as good as I think I am. And I'm pretty sure, that I can get her through this and she's going to transition okay next year. And the teachers have just been phenomenal in working with us on that. But it's still, it's just hard. I would have a hard time just with the fact that she was transitioning to high school. But I'm really struggling now because we're doing this thing. And so I felt like, well, maybe I'm just this isolated parent who's having this problem. And what I found when I looked into it was, wow, this isn't so uncommon. I'm not so special after all. So parents that are taking care of their children at home are struggling with where do they make space? How do they have more than one kid? How do they get them, access to what they need? There's just layer upon layer of concerns, different schedules. People have lost their jobs. People have gotten different jobs. People work at the casino. They have different schedules. It is pretty crazy out there. And I work with at-risk families, and I can tell you that I did the transition too. I didn't do it on the large scale like you guys did here at the school, but I had to transition families across 8 counties. And just recently, I am transitioning into 9 different school district schedules, and how do you treat kids across 8 counties and 9 different school districts when they need to be in school certain times of the day and certain days of the week. And honestly, it was way easier if they were Plan C. because then it was pretty set. So Haywood County is a breeze, you know. But all the other counties have different schedules, and I can almost tell you all of them because I have to work around them. So I have this other layer of stress going on here. So just know that stress in families causes all kinds of things. There's an interesting, relationships are super important between family members and kids and their parents and spouses and significant others, and you know, so it becomes like a hotbed for some concerns when you have this kind of thing going on where the world just kind of shifted on you. And then you have, on top of that, all the social unrest, and apparently we're having hurricanes and fires and all kinds of stuff happening, which is, my kids don't watch the news much anymore because it's scary. And they react to it, you know. It's a scary thing to turn on the news, so we don't turn it on very often anymore because it's not. I used to be a 24-hour news person. I can't stand to turn it on for 5 minutes anymore because it's so negative. So if you have, so where I'm going with this is that this is a pretty stressful situation that we're in, and you guys are having to deal with all this on your level, which is at the school level, and then the rest of us are out here in human services trying to manage what's going on in the homes and in the communities and stuff. So, and those of you who know me know that I've been in a doctoral program for 100 years, and if you write a 350-page dissertation, you have 350 pages to edit repeatedly over and over again. And part of my research was asking school staff what they were most concerned about and what they felt like contributed to behavioral concerns in kids. And the two biggies were poverty and family deviance or family, disruptions. And those were the two biggies that came out of that research. That, what have we got going on right now? We've got a lot of extra stressors. So, and also on top of what's already going on, and the staff recognize it, and I'm sure that they're dealing with it. I don't hear a whole lot about it, but I'm sure it happens that things are, I don't know what's going on at school. Maybe the kids are so happy to be back that it's going super great, I hope so. But some of the things that you can, when parents are having stress and adults are having stress in general, I made a list here of what this might look like. And it could look like fear and agitation. I can promise you, if I am coming to you and my voice is like a couple octaves higher and I'm asking questions, I'm probably not as upset or angry as I am fearful. And when a parent comes at you and they're that way, oftentimes it's easier to respond in kind. Or I'm not saying that anybody here has ever done that. But in fact, the most effective way to handle that is to stay calm and keep your voice very neutral. And usually folks will fall down a step or two, and it'll be okay. If you're calm, they're calm. If I could get parents taught that, that we would go a long way in this world. And because it's very, very hard to keep, when someone's escalating, to calm things. And I'm one of those. Brandon Sutton can attribute, he knows me when I call and say I'm worried. He just stays very calm, and you're okay, Miss Button, you're going to be fine. Ma'am, he always says, ma'am, you're going to be okay. And it's going to be fine. But usually it's because I'm concerned about something that's going on that I don't feel like I have control of. And how many of us today feel like we're in control of what is going on right now in this world? The best we can do, things feel out of control right now. So stress could look like that. It could look like changes in various habits that folks engage in. And there could be increases in uses of substances, and families could also experience higher rates of abuse, neglect, and just crisis situations in general as the stress increases. So the specific concerns related to school that I heard whenever I sort of said, I'm going to be talking to the school board, what are you concerned about? And this is what I heard. First off was that the spring quarantine was very sudden, and the subsequent transition to online learning was, it provided opportunity there for less motivation. to get your schoolwork done. And some kids figured out they might just pass whether they do it or not. And so there was not a lot of motivation, and parents struggled too with it. Then there was uncertainty all summer about what's going to happen with the school system, or what's going to happen with school in general, with our educational system. And so that further demotivated folks. And then once there was a decision made, parents felt like they had no control, that things were going to happen. Maybe they weren't heard. Even though you guys sent out phone calls and surveys and emails, it still felt a little out of control for folks, some folks. And decision making around Plan B and Plan C was a little confusing because we really didn't know what we were getting into either way. So you take Plan B. I had this concept of Plan B. My concept of Plan B was going to be that my child was going to go to school 2 days a week. There was going to be a planning day in the middle, and then 2 days a week they would be sitting in front of a computer and a teacher would be teaching them. That was my naive concept of what it was going to be. When I went for a meeting at the school and I learned that my child was going to go to school 2 days and be handed a packet of things to take home and work on, and then a Google Classroom and things that I had a moment of panic because suddenly I realized my job was going to increase significantly here. That even with all the supports, I had a lot of responsibility that I was, I had to step up, and I had to do my part, and it was big. And I almost had a moment of tearfulness. I was sitting across from Miss Heron, and I just said, I feel so sorry for you guys. This is so much. And it is a lot. It's a lot for you guys to be putting together. And then Plan B, the Plan B folks said, especially middle school and high school, they were confused because they have several different teachers. Every teacher has a different planning period, and every class has different responsibilities. It's not like everybody has the same schedule. Everybody has something different. And then with different schedules as far as work and things going on in the home, you have a situation where you have families who I, for one, still don't know where the planning periods of all the teachers are. And I work probably 6 to 7 days a week, and some days I work 12 to 14 hours, depending on what I'm doing that day. Some days not so much, but I never really exactly know. So I really have a hard time, like if I have a moment where I think I don't know what's going on, figuring out when's the planning period and how do I get to that. Parents, I usually end up asking, or that teacher, I end up asking someone at the middle school, the principal at the middle school usually, or my EC teacher, because and they've been wonderful. I want to be clear that I have no complaints about that, but I think a lot of families are feeling that same level of confusion. And I was just in a meeting last week with people who do what I do in different jobs in different counties, and I heard a couple of the people say, I still haven't figured out that Power School stuff yet. And another one said, I don't understand the Google Classroom. Like we were having this whole session about how we were all confused, all different school districts, about how to handle this situation. So I didn't feel like I was alone, thank goodness, but it's significant. Then there's a 5-day break, and some kids are not as motivated. If like my kid goes Monday, Tuesday, and then she's off Wednesday, Thursday, not off, but she's online Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then there's Saturday and Sunday, and it's a whole new world on Monday. I'm just being honest. And some kids are going to go do all their work and be done on Wednesday night, because that's me. That's how I grew. That's how I was. If you'd handed me a packet of work, Mr. McKinney can attest to this. If you gave me an assignment, I had it in on time, and I had it in ahead of time if I could do it. On the other hand, my husband would probably have thrown the packet down and gone outside to play or go fishing, and he was not interested, and his family would have to sit him down and force him. That's our conversations that we have. And he's like, I get it. There's different levels of motivation in kids, and so different stresses for families, different levels of, some families can just turn their kids loose and they're going to do it, and others are going to have to sit at the kitchen table and force it or not, So, and then Plan C families feel like, what I heard was that they feel disconnected and they don't feel fully supported. Well, that makes sense because they're not coming to school, but it's still, they felt like they needed further resources and ways to feel connected to the school system. And I also understand that you guys are doing everything as fast as you can do it and as diligently as you can do it. I'm just letting you know, this is where we are. Other things are, obviously we have different kinds of families out there. Not everybody is a two-parent family. We have single-parent families. We have 40% of the kids, I understand, in this county are being raised by grandparents now. And if you're my mom and dad, you don't really understand the internet. I'm talking about my parents who are assisting with raising my nephew. You don't really understand the internet. And so it's confusing, and they have a hard time with that. But they're learning. They're getting better at it. And then there's also kids who are in group homes, foster homes, just all different kinds of things going on. So you guys know this. This isn't news to you. And also remember that internet service is very spotty, patchy, and I can tell you that today I struggled with my virtual sessions with the kids online, that I had to do a group online, and we were in and out through the whole thing. It's very ineffective when that's going on. For me, it's not my favorite way of doing things, but it's hard. And it's very hard. And of course, I live 5 miles up Alarka. Maybe it's a whole lot better if you live in town, I don't know. But it's pretty tough up there sometimes to get what you need. And also, some kids are dependent on their families having cell phones and signal through that. And if parents can't afford to pay their cell phone bills, they may not have that. Now, I know you guys have put things in place, places you can go and download things, and that's great. But kids are dependent on parents to get that stuff done. So, and parents have to be willing to be responsible and step up and do that. So, just pointing that out. And then different families, different parents have varying levels of ability to do the science and the math of today, and anything for that matter. It could be other topics. But most of us did not grow up parents. Well, maybe I'm speaking for myself. I'm a little older parent, but we didn't grow up in the Common Core era, where we learned this new math, and that I can't do it. I'll be honest with you, I can do math, but I do it differently, and it may not look the same. And I get the answer, but it's not going to be the way it's supposed to be. And that is a real common concern I hear, that folks say, I can't do the math. So, and then I also want to point out that many teachers and staff members at the school system are also parents, and that they're doing this thing too, and it's 24/7, and it's a lot of stress for them. And some of them have kids in different school districts, and their kids go to school on different days, and that's a big deal too. So I just want to recognize them, and I respect them, and I know that this is tough for them. And the parents of middle and high school students have more than one teacher. I think I brought this up before, and so they have to interact with lots of different people. It's just not one person. And parents of kids in the Exceptional Children's Program are even more vulnerable. We feel very vulnerable in today's world. So it's a lot to manage, and you guys are doing a great job. And I just want to thank you for that, and I just want to say pay attention also to some of this other stuff. And so because most students are as strong as their family. You know, they can do as much as their family will help them do and pull them along to do. Some kids are internally motivated and whatever, you know, they just do it. But most kids follow the lead of their family, and there's varying levels. One of the things I heard when I was doing my research is there's varying levels of prioritization of education in school within the, you know, some families consider school to be the most important aspect of their child's life, other families don't. And that affects the child's ability to be successful. So from local parents, suggestions, what did they say to me as to what they would like to see happen? So as soon as we can get back to normal, that would be great. Of course, we all know that that's strongly influenced by state guidelines and infection rates. So we get that. Be patient as we adjust to being full-time parents, workers, and teacher assistants, because that's kind of what it feels like. And remember that our relationship with our children at home is directly affected by the amount of work that is required for us to do. with them in the home setting, online or by packet. So we need more resources for kids who are struggling. I got a nice text message today about after school being available at the middle school, and of course my child's participating in that, and I'm very thankful for it because we really need it to help her get her where she needs to be. Tutoring, and I've suggested auditing classes. That's a word from college, where you go sit in classes and you don't really get a grade, you just listen in. I know that's not possible, but I keep having this fantasy that I can send my kid to school 2 more days and she can just get double doses of school. I've had suggestions that textbooks would be helpful with some of these subjects, like the math, which we don't know how to do these problems, and everything's online, or that's just, it's very hard to do. I had a suggestion that key classes be recorded. Like math classes, it would be very helpful to me when my daughter says, I can't do my math, if I could say, well, let's go online to your classroom and click and see what your teacher said about it on Tuesday. Let's watch that lesson together. That would be so helpful if there was a YouTube page where those kinds of things were available. I know I talked with Dr. Sutton about, could we not stream the classes out on Thursday and Friday? Of course, the bandwidth is not strong enough. I get, once we talked about it, I was like, yeah, I see the limitations. That's a problem, but there has to be a way to work our way around. How do we, for kids who need it to hear it again, how do we make that happen? So one idea was some way that they could get onto a YouTube channel where their class was recorded for some of the more difficult topics. Be aware that even those of us who use the internet every day and computers every day, we're still struggling with this stuff. It's a lot to do, and it's a lot to I'm just not proficient at it, and I'll just be honest. I didn't use Google Classroom before, and I've done online classes, but it's different. It's been a different format, so I'm still adjusting. So online resources would be helpful, like a specific parent support page where we could, have videos about how do you access. I know that the middle school has sent out some stuff about here's some places you can go and look for resources, and I'm really appreciative of that. But I'm kind of slow in that somebody has to kind of say it to me that I recognize and understand. They handheld me through getting on Power School the other day. Thank God, Mr. Kerr and Karen Cook got me on. It took both of them. Because for some reason it wasn't working, and I'm just pushy enough to call and say somebody's got to help me, and they did, and I'm thankful for that. And then a parent support page that had free resources, like I can thank my friend Kevin Allman for this. He said, tell them to put tell parents about this Khan Academy, which is like a math thing apparently, and there's some resources and links they can access. And that are free and parents don't know about. And maybe if we could get like a page where we could be each other's resource, like I'm struggling here and can you give me some ideas on how to get through this part? And I know you have to be mindful because those kinds of things have to be monitored when you have a page where people are allowed to type things into it, because things can get typed into it that are inappropriate and not okay. But it would be, in a perfect world, it'd be great if I could say, I'm really struggling tonight with this. Does somebody know how to help me? That would be great. And then I also feel like the Plan C folks kind of need their own support page or some way that they can, someplace that they can feel supported. Because I heard from more than one Plan C parent that they feel less supported and they didn't feel like they were particularly connected in any kind of real way. And I'm sure there's reasons why they chose Plan C. And so I want them to feel like they're a part of things too, and I think you guys do too. I'm sure of it. So finally, that was long, and I apologize for that, but that's kind of me. So I just thought of, I looked up a really cool quote in the Chinese proverb, tell me and I forget, show me, I may remember, involve me, and I understand. So if you, thank you for your time and attention, and I'm just encouraging you to involve parents and families as you move forward and consider that there's a lot of stress out there And what you guys do now could affect some kids for the rest of their life. And I'm serious about that. I had a kid in my group today who said, he's not from this county, I'm really afraid I'm going to fail the 8th grade. And I want to be a vet one day. And there's problems in his household. There's a lot of problems. And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. And this is a month in to school. And I have a kid significantly stressed out about the fact that he thinks he's going to fail the 8th grade. And that's a big deal to me. So somewhere along the line, there's been a message sent, I'm not saying in the school district, that if you don't do this, you're failing. And my thoughts are, wait a minute, the message should be, how do I help you? How do I get you where you need to be? So that's why I wanted to come tonight. And I know you guys know a lot of this already, and already there's so many resources in place, and I thank you for it. I really just wanted to stand up and be a voice for families and parents tonight and just let you know how important what you do and how appreciated you are. Like I said, I looked for that school bus every day, and I appreciate the decisions that were made. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your concern. Do anybody have any questions or?
Do we have any public comment tonight? Joanne, has anybody signed up? Okay. All right. Then all that is left is to let you know about some dates of importance. The September 7th holiday has already passed. Optional teacher work day is on October the 7th. We're moving towards the end of the quarter at that point, and the teachers are going to need some time. We had talked about meeting every 2 weeks. The next official meeting that's already on the books is October 12th. However, Melanie and I spoke earlier, and if we continue to meet every 2 weeks, we would probably need to arrange a September 28th meeting. That would be about halfway between now and the next regular scheduled meeting. So, Amelia, is that still your desire to do?
I'm speaking for myself only. I personally feel like, with all things considered, I think meeting every 2 weeks is probably good, even if we meet and say, everything's great, and we all go home, But I feel like it's important to just stay informed, and then obviously if something were to drastically change, we could call an emergency meeting if needed.
Sure.
So
does September 28th sound good to everyone?
What day? That's 2 weeks from today, right?
Should be, yes, ma'am. To
Yeah.
Monday night. And we'll have Allison back and keep sharing the updates with you. Of course, we'll be keep you informed along the way as well, okay? So, Joanne, we need to see if this room is available that night, okay? And past that, Ms. Byrne, I don't think that there's anything left on our agenda.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. And that was unanimous. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, everyone, and for whoever might be watching and listening, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Still 6 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am, 6 o'clock. It seems to work well.
Thank you.